Alright everybody, I'm back. This is Jay, and we're continuing our work on a Khorne Berzerker. Yesterday, actually for the last 2 days, I've been actually finishing up the rest of this squad. And I think in the future, this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to paint all but one mini and then demonstrate what I did on the last mini. Because that way I'm not worried about finishing up, because I'm pretty much finished and all I need to do now is paint one guy and I'm done. So we are pretty much where we left off last time. I might have done a few more details since the last video, but not too much. You know, added in silver on the chains, and when I say silver, what I really mean is lead belcher. And I did a Nuln Oil wash over that. I did, as you saw in the video, I washed the golds. And what I'm going to do right now is the bolt gun and the chain sword blade. And for bolt guns, when I want to do very dark metallic, and I like to do this frequently with bolt guns, I will use a dry brush. And I know that many people think of dry brushing as being some sort of weird cheat that only noobs use, but it is useful in certain situations. It should not be overused. It's like any other technique. And with bolt guns, I really like to sort of sneak up on the metallic. And that means that really almost all of the metallic should be off of your brush. It should just be the barest hint of paint left on the brush when you do it. And of course, since most of this is painted, it also helps from keeping you from keeps you from making mistakes too easily, because even if your brush slips a little bit, you're not going to be slathering a bunch of lead belcher over the rest of the model, because it's just not possible, because you're being very careful. You can see, I hope, you can see how it's just picking up the sheen. It's not painting it. It's almost like it's just changing the surface texture a bit. And I like it. I think that looks good for where I wanted to go with that. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the blade. And I don't really care if this leaches a bit into the red there, because let's face it, if I'm going to be smacking people with this chain sword, the red near the chain is going to get dinged and worn. So if the red near the blade is dinged and worn and metallic, that's just fine. That's okay. Alright, now, but with the blade in particular, you can actually go back and highlight it a bit if you want. Touch the edges with some straight paint to provide a little pop, because yeah, that's the chain's getting a lot of use. It's going to be shiny, at least right at the tips where it's grinding into stuff. Yeah, so that looks like about how I want it. Then the bolt gun has a couple of details on there that I'm just going to pick out with the, I need my magnifier to do this. Can you see? Yeah, okay, there we go. Not 100% necessary, but helpful. Definitely makes the bolt gun have a little bit more visual interest. And you can kind of fiddle around with this as much as you want, depending on how fancy you want the bolt gun to look. I'm good with that. And you know, the same silver highlighting that we did on the blade, you could also do on the bolter if you want to add a little bit more pop to that. But I'm not going to do that because I don't think it's necessary. Alright, something else I did yesterday, by the way, is prepped the backpack, and essentially just following all the same rules for how I was approaching this as I discussed earlier in the other video. So at this point I am going to highlight the gold, and for that I'm using Gehenna's gold. Balthasar gold is my starter gold, right, as I mentioned before. So Gehenna's is my highlight. This gold, I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again, does not cover well on its own. Do not use it by itself. On the other hand, it makes a brilliant highlight for Balthasar. Balthasar is almost like Tin Bits was. So with this, I'm going to be touching corners. I apologize if I get out of frame here, but I feel like I'm doing gymnastics whenever I paint on camera. You can pick out rivets if you like. I'm actually going to leave the rest of this pretty much the darker color on the back. I just like the back better that way. But picking out the rivets is fine. And on the front, I sort of go a little bit into the edges. Are we still seeing this? Okay. In between rivets a little bit, and this is kind of just touches to add a bit of a highlight. Luckily the paint, as I said and have said over and over, does not cover very well, but that's fine. In fact, perfect in this instance, because you don't want it to overpower the underlying gold. You want it to just work as a highlight, and it does that very, very well. Just feel like I'm continuing to repeat myself. Alright, and then you just sort of work your way around the model, right? All of the gold that you want to highlight gets touched in the same way. The more Gehennas you put on there, the brighter it's going to be. So it's sort of a salt to taste kind of thing. You know, if you want it to be more brilliant and more vibrant, then you just add more Gehennas. And if you want it to be darker and dirtier, then you do less. and you would certainly want to leave it off of the real shadowed areas, areas where light's not going to hit and reflect. Notice how I'm using the side of the brush on the raised portions. I've mentioned this in other videos before. It's a really nice trick. If you didn't know to do that, you can really make doing raised thing, instead of trying to hit it with a tip, you can go in with the side of the brush. And also, by using different amounts of the gold, you can actually create some differences, making it look like they are different metals and not identical, even though you're using essentially the same colors. Oh, right, yeah, backpack. Backpack needs it too. Notice how I'm just touching the top and kind of leaving the bottom. It provides a, kind of a natural looking highlight shadow. Alright, so another highlight, something else I decided to do yesterday. I kind of felt like there were areas that just needed a little bit more of a highlight, and really kind of an edge highlighting, which I don't always do, and I didn't do it everywhere, but in areas where I wanted there to be just one more bright highlight point, I used this cadmium scarlet from Joe Sonia, which is this really just vivid orange here. On my monitor it doesn't look quite the same, but trust me when I say this is an incredibly vivid orange color. And where I've been using it is like on these helmets that have the kind of open face here. I just hit the corners because that's a kind of a natural highlight point. In fact, corners in particular are where I was hitting with this color, but also like an edge highlight on the legs. Not a bad place, and just, right out in front. Oh, my hands are shaking. Too much coffee today. I probably shouldn't bother with the feet. They're going to get dirtied up. Here, I'll even show you where we're going to go with the feet. See that? I like drawing the feet into the groundwork. Alright, I mean, I might go back with the camera out of the way and spend some time really studying the highlight points on that, but that kind of gives you an idea of the purpose and point of that. Alright, I need a little Nuln Oil. because I just noticed that the chainsword has some silver on it right here that's still bare and hasn't been shaded at all. I really like, with the lead belcher and the Nuln Oil on top of it, you end up with something that looks very industrial. Very dark and almost realistic. Although that may not be the right word, but that's how it makes me feel about it. And then, of course, oh no! I'll be right back. So yeah, I just built a bottle of Nuln Oil. I think there's a little bit left. Yep, there's a little bit left. So I can continue on. But what I was going to say before I spilled my bottle of Nuln Oil was that I was going to use Agrax Earthshade on the chainsword, because I noticed that it didn't have the nice line that I like. I've noticed that the Agrax shades very well over the red. Oh, that's too much. Let's get that out of there. There we go. Doesn't shade well when you use too much. Anyway, it's like a natural color for the red. But I mentioned that in the last video, so you don't need me to mention it again. Or do you? And you can kind of see it all over this thing, anywhere where it goes very deep in terms of coloration. That is because of Agrax Earthshade, which I love. I know a lot of people miss Devlin Mud, but I've kind of forgotten why. Alright. Hey, so a question that was asked of me is that since I leave off the shoulder pads and the backpack, how do I glue them? Well, there's actually a couple of approaches to this. The first, and the most forward-thinking, but it actually kind of adds a bit of work, and these all add a little bit of work, but first would be to actually mask off that area there and that area there prior to painting. And then when you're ready to paint, you would pull your mask off and it would be just plastic and you'd be ready to go. And I like to use blue tack for that when I do that, but I didn't do that this time. And so what I'm going to do, and I did a little bit here already, which is I just scraped the paint out of the inside here, because that's one of the areas where you want the glue to stick. The other area is at this ridge. So I'm taking the paint off of there, because if you try and put glue on a place where there's paint, for one thing, the plastic model cement doesn't really adhere to the paint at all, so you don't get a good glue point. And if you use super glue, the paint, or the glue, is only going to adhere as well as the paint does, which isn't nearly as well as glue does. So you know, the first time that backpack gets a tug, the paint's going to give out and the whole thing's going to fall off. So this is the point on the back where the backpack lip sort of overlaps. Now there's one problem here that I've noticed, and that is that these backpacks don't really fit properly. I haven't test fitted this one. Let's do that. So I don't know if you can see it. I think it doesn't really, it should fit so that it's hooked onto that back portion there, but it doesn't really want to do that. So what I've been doing is actually trimming up the backpack, taking away some of the plastic here so that it actually fits properly, but I haven't done, it's not like a huge deal anyway. So then I also need to remove the paint from this nubbin, and you can just scrape it right off there with your X-Acto and hopefully not kill yourself in the process. You could use a file to do this as well. And again, this is made harder for me trying to show you how to do this on camera. So it's like I'm looking at how I'm doing this going, this is not safe. Well, and this wouldn't be how I would do it were I not on camera, because I would be able to move the model into a safer position. Alright, okay, so that is essentially how clean I want it to be. Anywhere the plastic's going to touch and I want the glue to hold, I need to remove the paint, and that's what I just did. Now for the backpacks, actually I came up with a solution for the backpacks a while back. Not backpacks, I'm sorry. That's not a backpack. That is a shoulder pad. So my solution for the shoulder pads was different, and actually less work. And that is tacky glue. And I think this is probably the same as the glue that GW sells. What do they call it? PVA glue. It's essentially a really, really thick white glue. This is better than standard American white glue like Elmer's, because it actually holds very well. And all I do is I sploosh that stuff into the backpack area and put it right in place. And the problem with, do I keep calling it backpacks? Shoulder pads. The problem with the shoulder pads is they have no definite connection point, right? They kind of just sort of float on that shoulder and hopefully find a place to sit. So you might have a very, very small connection point if you're just using super glue or plastic model cement. But if you use the tacky glue, you can kind of fill that area with tacky glue, stick that on the shoulder, and then essentially the tacky glue creates an enveloping hold between the shoulder and the shoulder pad. And when you're done, it holds really well. It's not a it's not a brittle hold either. It's got a little give to it. So that's actually one of the strengths of it, is that it's not like the first time you drop it, the hold breaks and I almost did it again, and your shoulder pads fall off. No, it's going to hold, and it's going to have some give, just a bit, and that's going to work out really well. So where are we? Well, I don't actually want to put the backpack on yet. I was just demonstrating that. Oh, you know what? I could use a little of my remaining Nuln Oil. In the little mouth area, in the grill, right up in his grill. Oh, I also did the eyes on the ones that needed eyes, and you know, There's 100 tutorials you can find for eyes, and these guys' eyes are so subtle and so hidden that I'm not even going to bother to go into it. They're green, very subtle. Some of them don't have eyes. Some of them have eyes like this guy, a little more out there. But some of them just have slits. So no eyes whatsoever. Alright, where are we? Oh, that sword doesn't look bad. Actually, I kind of like it. Now that needs highlighting again. So that's actually where we are in this model, is that it's detailing, looking it over, detailing, looking it over, detailing it. So I'm going to go do some of those final details, and then I'll come right back and show you the groundwork, I believe. Yes, groundwork. Groundwork next. Okay, as promised, we're going to move on to the groundwork. And I should probably mention that all of the bases for these figures have gotten sort of what my kind of base level groundwork is, and that's Vallejo sandy paste. If you're not doing, when you're doing a unit and you want to do it fast, this is actually a really nice nice way to go beyond just the base without having to add a whole lot of extra work. It provides a little texture and a little bit of a height change around. It's very natural. It's also very simple. And so that was the first thing, and that the bases actually started like that. And in fact, here's some other ones that have that plus a little sand on top, just to provide a little bit more granularity to the texture. Those are going to be in my next video, by the way, or my next Space Marine painting video. So in any case, so that was that, with a base of Mournfang brown, and then I'm just going to add a dry brush of Ungor flesh, and it's a pretty stark contrast between those two colors. But oh, actually, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, you remember me mentioning that I like to bring the groundwork up into the model. It's actually it's a really nice way to anchor the figure into the base. So I'm taking some Mournfang brown, and I'm just going to lightly dry brush it over the feet, over his boots, maybe up a little bit into the leg. I don't like doing it so much on these guys though, because that leg piece flares so much and it just doesn't look right for some reason when you bring too much of the ground cover into it. So I'm only doing a little bit here. Definitely onto the bottom of the foot there. Since that's seeing, contact with the ground all the time, you really shouldn't be red. Alright, so now, having completed that, I'll move back to the other step that I said I was going to do, which is the Ungor flesh. And like the metallic dry brush that I did earlier, but not quite so much. I do want to make this a subtle build-up. But the nice thing is here, you don't have to worry about getting it onto the feet because you want to. So I definitely like to do the feet after I've been working on the ground, because then most of the color is off of the brush and you can be really subtle with it. And in this case, I don't want to forget the foot that's off the ground, because it'd be really weird if I had one foot that was really dirty and another one that wasn't, because it'd look like he plays hopscotch wherever he goes. Alright, see that? He's got two dirty boots. And because I'm using the same colors as the groundwork, it really sort of anchors him into the scene, as it were. And it looks like he's been running through the dirt, which he has. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put those shoulder pads, not backpacks. I may go back actually and do another coat on the groundwork, but I think that's fine for now. Keep in mind that I'm trying to show you the process without necessarily showing you every second of painting. But these last two videos have actually shown you a lot more painting than I normally do. Alright, so tacky glue, shoulder pads. Shoulder pads. So this one goes on the right. I'm just going to double check that's going to fit there. Yep, okay. So here, oh, wrong brush. I usually use one of my crappy brushes to drop the paint in. Now look at this. See how thick that is in there? Excellent. Alright, let's get the other one. You see how the glue is really goopy, and when it finally gets on there, it's going to not have any problem finding purchase. All that glue is going to surround itself around the shoulder, and then when it all dries, it's going to be, you know, holding from multiple points, which means that it's going to be a really nice solid fit. Alright, I'm going to go wrestle with the backpack, because that's a little bit more work and a little bit fiddly. By the way, I recommend, if you're doing these Berzerkers, that, you know, test fit the backpacks for yourself before you do any painting at all, and just to see what I'm talking about here, because it's kind of annoying. And maybe before you get any paint on there, you could trim the backpacks up so they fit properly. And maybe this problem is because of the paint and not because of the backpack, but I'm pretty sure it's the backpack. So let me do that, and then we'll be back in a bit. And there we go. What I'm not going to show you today is the application of decals, and I'll be quite honest, I am not a fan of the Games Workshop decals. They're just a little bit thick, and they go on with great difficulty, and frankly, I don't think these guys need them. They are sort of an adjunct to the Angels of Ecstasy, which is the primary chapter that I'm doing. So while these guys might be world eaters or something else, they will stand apart very well from the rest of the force. So I don't think they really require any other sort of badge noting their affiliation. There's still a couple of little things I want to do, but it is primarily done. And so I'm going to do just a couple of touches. I'm going to do a clear coat, and then I've got to go photograph this unit as a whole. And the photographs, or photographs, will be on the end of this video, which means that I'm not going to upload this video until I have those pictures done. But there we go. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and definitely keep an eye out for the next one. So the next one I'll be doing for this force is either Angel of Ecstasy or Possessed Angels of Ecstasy. So we're talking pink and black. I like me some pink and black. And but that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.